Hi guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be making some jerk chicken and cheesy lentil stuffed hot patties. So let's get into the video. First, I'm going to be starting off by making my crust. I'm going to be making it in my food processor. You can do this with your hands. So I'm adding some flour, all-purpose, and then I'm going to be adding some turmeric and paprika and salt in there. I also added a little bit of sugar, and my camera did turn off, so I made 2 sets of crust. This is just me making the second one, and I'm grating some frozen unsalted butter in there. I freeze my butter beforehand just so that it's easier to work with and it doesn't melt everywhere. As always, measurements and everything used are down below in the description box, so check that out. And now I'm just gonna blend this and slowly adding some water. Now in making it in the food processor, you have to be mindful of how much water you add, just because you can't feel the consistency of it, but when it starts to form a ball or clump together, that's when you know you've got the right consistency. You want it soft but not too soft. And here I'm just forming it a little bit and I'm gonna wrap it in some plastic wrap, and that is the first ball that I made. So in the first one I used a little bit more turmeric, that's why it's darker. You want to chill your crust for at least 30 minutes or overnight. Now I'm going to work on my chicken. So I'm just using one chicken breast. If you want to make all jerk chicken patties, of course you'll need more. And of course my chicken was washed beforehand with salt, vinegar, and lime. But here I'm just cutting it in half and then in strips, and I just want to make sure it's nice and thin, so wherever it's a little thick I'll just be cutting it in halves like I'm doing now. You can do this however you liked. I just wanted to make sure that my chicken strips were a little bit thin so it would cook a little bit faster. And I'm just gonna be chopping this up. Now I don't have the footage of me seasoning it, but I just went in with some paprika, thyme, garlic powder, and onion powder, of course. And I also added some jerk sauce to it. It wasn't my homemade sauce. Of course, I have a recipe on my channel with that, so if you want to check that out, definitely do so. I just used some store-bought sauce. The jerk sauce that I used, or jerk seasoning rather, is the Grace's jerk seasoning sauce, and it's hot, so I only use a little bit, but you can of course make your own sauce or use whatever jerk seasoning or sauce you'd like. Now I did end up concocting my own little sauce mix that I can add to the lentils and to the chicken just so it could have a little bit of moisture to it. So I'm just adding some yellow onion, garlic cloves, a little bit of ginger, and a little bit of brown sugar. I also added some soy sauce in there and a little bit of water and some of that jerk seasoning sauce that I just told you about right there. Now I'm just going to blend this all up. Now, if you do decide to make this, just be mindful that if you add it to your chicken, this is very flavorful. So you probably would want to season your chicken after adding that, but I seasoned mine before. Now I'm gonna work on my lentils. So I'm using split red lentils because that's what I had. And I'm just going to be adding that into a pan and boiling it. I washed my lentils before doing this. You just want to add enough water to cover the lentils and let them boil for the time indicated on your package. It all depends on what kind of lentils you're using. So be mindful of that. Just read your package and basically follow what it says. Whilst the lentils are boiling, I'm going to be working on the chicken. So I'm going to be frying them. So I'm adding some oil and I'm going to add the chicken into the pan. And I'm going to space them out because I don't want them to steam. So you want to space them out pretty evenly. I'm going to let them cook on both sides for a few minutes or until they get nice and golden on each side. You don't want to overcook your chicken because of course it's going to be rubbery and hard and dry. But it all depends on how you cut your chicken. You want to make sure they were cut in little chunks and the chunks were nice and equal in size. So midway through cooking the chicken, I'm going to be adding in that sauce that I made. Just a little bit of it since I only have one chicken breast because I'm going to save the rest for the lentils. Just to add a little bit of sauce to the chicken and a little bit more of the jerk flavor. And I'm just going to toss them in that for a few minutes. Now that my chicken is done, I'm just gonna turn off the heat and set it to the side and continue working on the lentils. After my lentils were boiling for about 10 to 12 minutes, they were done. So I decided to strain out the water that was still in the pot. Once the lentils were strained, I'm just gonna fry out some of that water for a little bit. Then I'm gonna pour in my makeshift jerk sauce. After that is added, I'm just gonna stir that around as you see me doing and just let that come to a boil for a little bit just so that the lentils kind of absorb all of that flavor. And I'm also going to be adding in some seasonings in there, salt, some garlic and onion powder. And I also added more of the jerk seasoning sauce. just because it needed a little bit more of a kick as well as a jerk flavor, just because I had to split the sauce between the chicken and the lentils. I'm also adding in some browning just to darken up the color and I guess make it look more of a meat-like type of filling, so more towards like a ground beef type of filling, which you traditionally make hot patties with. Now that my filling is all done, I'm just gonna set that to the side so that it cools down with the jerk chicken. And now we're going to be working on the crust. So I would have to say the hardest part about making hot patty or any type of patty is the crust, adding all the layers that make it nice and flaky and buttery. So here I have my crust on my countertop that is floured. You want to make sure that your countertop is floured really well because it will stick as you kind of roll it out because of the butter that's kind of in the crust. It will start to kind of melt. So here I am just rolling out my crust and adding flour as needed. Side note, you also want to make sure that beforehand your countertop is clean. Just putting that out there. Also, you will need a lot of arm strength to roll out this crust as many times as you have to get that nice flaky crust if that's what you're going for. So just a mental note of that. Once you have your crust all rolled out, you're going to be adding your first layer of butter. This is what helps make the crust nice and flaky. So you just want to grate some frozen butter on top of the crust. Make sure to spread it out. Once your butter is added, you're just going to take the crust and start to fold it into little cube shapes. And you will need to make sure that your surface is nice and floured for this because if not, it will stick. Once your crust is folded down, you can refrigerate this for about 30 minutes or freeze it for 10 minutes just so that the butter sets and it doesn't melt and make a mess when you try and roll it out again. Once your first layer of butter is nice and set, you're gonna go in and roll that out with some flour and repeat that process again. Now, you can do this at least 3 times if you want a nice flaky crust. Once your crust is rolled out again, you'll be going in with a second layer of butter. Again, I kept the butter in the freezer between doing this so that it stays hard. Once the butter is added, we'll be folding the crust into a little box again and then refrigerating or freezing a second time. Once that is ready to go, you will repeat the process one more time if you'd like, adding the butter layer. And then you're ready to make your patties. So after the third layer of butter is added and you've chilled your crust, now you're going to once again flour your crust and roll it out. Once your crust is nicely rolled out, I just used a plate and kind of got my pizza cutter and just made a circle. You can use a pot cover too if you have a good size that you want your patties to be, and just press it down and it'll make a circle for you. But I found that this worked pretty good too, and I'm gonna make 4 at a time. So I'm just gonna lift the circles from the rest of the crust. And once you have all of your circles out, you're going to gather the remainder of the crust and kind of make it into a ball again and just refrigerate that so that the butter doesn't melt whilst you're making your patties. Once done with the first set of patties, you will roll the dough out again and make more. So here I'm working on my first one. I'm just rolling it out a little bit. You don't have to. I just wanted it to be a little bit bigger. And now I'm going to add my filling. So with this one, I did the lentils. And I also added some shredded cheddar cheese on top, and you just want to fold that over and push it down to secure it. I cut off the excess crust with the pizza cutter. And you can add that excess crust to your crust ball that's in the fridge. And I'm just using a fork, dipping it in a little bit of flour and just pressing it down to seal the ends. And I will show you again in a little bit better quality. So here I'm just adding my filling. So I did make some beef ones as well. This was a beef one, and I added some cheddar cheese on top. If you'd like to see a beef recipe of me making patties, definitely let me know down below and I'll do this again for you. But here, folding it over, pushing it down, and just cutting off the ends. And just using my fork with a little bit of flour on it and sealing it. And because 3 times a charm, I will be showing you a third time with a square one. So you could just use your pizza cutter and cut out squares. This patty was filled with the lentils and jerk chicken as well as some cheddar cheese. So you just fold it over. You want to make sure it's tucked pretty well in the center too. And you can seal the ends before you cut the excess off if you'd like. Totally up to you. There you have it. They're ready to bake. So you can brush these with some melted butter if you like, but I'm not doing that, or even egg wash. And once they come out of the oven, they are good to go. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was a longer one, but I wanted to make it very informative for you. And if you like this video, make sure to leave me a big thumbs up. Don't forget to comment, share, and definitely subscribe. And until next one, what? And until next time, bye.